Well, today is the first day of autumn, and so the growing season is winding down. And here in my sun deck, I can probably keep doing this all winter long, and I just might. But the emphasis today that I wanted to show you was how these plants grow, and basically so you know how to stake them out and how they behave. Not so much in what kind of tomatoes they have and things like that. It's basically how they grow. Now, there's two types of, as we all know, two types of tomato plants. There's determinate and indeterminate. I've got both of them in here. And let me show you the difference in how they grew. Now, over here, this first one here, this is aroma tomato. Now, as you can see, it has got a very big tree trunk at the bottom. But if you look up here, see it didn't grow very tall. Now you see that one over there, it's hit the ceiling. That's really the next plant over. It's not the Roma. But see, the Roma has plenty of branches, and we've gotten a lot of nice Roma tomatoes off of here. And as a matter of fact, there's one right back there if you can see it. Anyway, so we're going to pick that one in a little bit. But as you can see, this Roma tomato plant still looks vibrant and healthy, and here's even some blossoms on the end. And what determinate plants are supposed to do is die off. They're supposed to give you tomatoes and then die off. They don't keep growing. But this one here, it looks like it's not in any way looking like it wants to die off, except for one thing. As I was looking at this thing and trimming it this morning, I noticed this. Let me put the camera back so I can show you this better. Now, as you can see, I pulled this off because I wanted to, it was standing like this, and I thought, oh, I better trim it. But as you can see, this is green, and it's looking okay, and it's got some leaves up here but that are not looking good. And it's got some leaves here that are looking just fine, but look down here. Let me get a close-up. The end of this vine, I hope that's focusing for you, but this is a dry piece of wood. So this has been broken off for quite some time. Now I cut this, as you can see, that's a nice clean cut. But what was on the end of this was it broke off of the plant all by itself. So maybe that's one way that they decide, I think it's time to die, is they just break away from the plant. But as you can see, even though the stem is gone and it has dried right up, it still takes quite a while before the rest of the plant decides that it's dried up too. So a lot of nutrients and energy and moisture, I suppose, is stored right inside the plant itself. Okay, so now we go over here to the indeterminate plants, and there's a great example right here. Now this is a brandywine tomato. And as you can see, the tree trunk down there, well, I put my hand in there for reference, but that bottom thing, if you had a ruler across there, I'm sure that's 1 inch, not diameter easily. Maybe it's probably bigger than that. It's huge. It's a big tree trunk. But look at how many suckers have come off of there and turned into large plants. And as you can see, there's still a lot of suckers coming off. See right here and here and here and here, and there's even one here that's got some tomato blossoms on it already. So that's the way they grow. Now, as you can see, if you look up here, see there's even some fresh tomato blossoms there. These grew right up into the ceiling, and I did trim them down a couple of times this year, but they just keep wanting to grow, and the only thing that stops them is the ceiling panels there. And as you can see, that show you some of these if I can find one there. That's, here's a good example. See that one right there? If the light is right, you can see it's singed because it's so hot up there. So that stops. So look at these up here. Those are singed. That's another plant. But anyway, so now what I want to show you is that's the difference between determinate plants. Now, indeterminate, like Romas, they'll give you tomatoes and then they die off, and they don't want to climb forever, but they do produce a lot of tomatoes. And indeterminate plants like brandywine, they like to just keep growing a tall vine and just keep going and going and going. But they'll also put out a lot of suckers, and they'll grow into, you know, substantial branches and grow fruit of their own. Now, commercial growers don't like to do this because it's very inefficient to get in there and find the tomatoes and process it that way. It's much more efficient to just let one vine grow and clip everything else off, and as the new tomatoes come, the vine gets bigger and bigger and longer, and you just keep clipping all the suckers off and letting the new tomatoes form at the end of the vine. That makes it more efficient to harvest that way. Now, the other point is this is all aquaponics, and I'll show you a picture here in a minute how they were planted. But basically, what you got here is this is just a little tub of dirt, and it's sitting in a water, and the water covers this pot. I guess that's 2 inches deep or something like that. But that's what it is. And this is aquaponics, but it's kind of like a hybrid aquaponics because there's dirt in a flower pot, and then that's sitting in the water. But the thing you should notice is that determinant or indeterminate really doesn't matter. These tomato plants really love this environment because they're very healthy, very strong, and they're really producing a lot of tomatoes. And I think I've shown you this before, but the root mat, let's go over here. Now this is the drain out of here, but as you can see, the root mat, a while ago this was bright green because it was full of algae and that kind of stuff. But if you look at this right now, you can see this is a very deep root mat, but you can see underneath the top, it's all white roots, so these are all healthy. So basically this bottom trough, right to the surface, is just a whole mass of roots. I've done this before, and that's what happens. They come out of the holes in the bottom of the flower pots, and the roots just spread out, and they just grow an entire root mat across the whole bottom of this growing tray. See where the water comes from? It's just recirculated out of this little plastic pond down here, and it just recirculates up through here and comes back down. Now, this little plastic pond is filled and kept full by another pond, and it's full of goldfish, and I'll show you that in a minute. It's inside the house, and I don't do anything to this water, just feed the goldfish and let it circulate, and so that is enough that these tomatoes really thrive. Now, going through the food room here in my house in the basement, this is the tank that fills up that pond upstairs that I just talked about. And as you can see, there's goldfish in there. It's maybe 10 or 12, something like that. Water from this tank is pumped up there on a schedule, and it drains back down here. So the goldfish are really what keeps the water fertile, I guess. Okay, I hope the lighting is such that you can still see me okay. But anyway, I've got to start doing something with this, because in the wintertime when I can't grow things outside, or even in the greenhouse, I put them in here and grow them in here. But anyway, let me take you outside and show you in the greenhouse outside, the big greenhouse, how tomatoes take to different things, different growing environments. And by that I mean I have some tomatoes that are in the dirt, right in the ground, and they're growing well. And then I have other tomatoes that I've put right in the floating raft system, and what they were was cuttings off of the other tomato plants that were in the ground, and I just stuck the cuttings in the water, and let me show you what's become of them. Now we're out in the main greenhouse now, and these tomato plants were planted in the dirt. They're actually in the soil in the greenhouse, and they're watered with a sprinkling system, so they don't have anything to do with the aquaponics part. Now, what I want you to notice is I was trimming some of these things. You know, they got too tall, and what happens is they, you know, if you don't take care of them, see, they just keep growing, but then if they get too tall, they flop over. And here's one that's flopped over, and there's another one here. I don't know if you can see that. Let me get a little close up and show you a little bit better. Now, as you can see, some of the remnant strings here, I was using this fiber string, but these rotted, and as you can see here, it's gone, and so the tomato plant that it was holding fell down. But if you look down in this maze here, you can see there's a lot of tomato plants that are on the ground, and that's because, you know, they got so big that they just lean. Like here's one right here. I guess if you follow the vine, you know, you can see where it goes. And there's another one here. See, but that one is off of one here that's already fallen down, and the end of it is way out here someplace. It's even there. There it is. There it is. See, there we go. So there's one right way out there. And that's what they do. They're indeterminate. They just keep growing and growing and growing. And like I said before, that makes it difficult to harvest, or it's not efficient, because you have to go in here and see, dig these tomatoes out. See, look at that. Now, if you're just somebody that's, you know, in your own little garden, you want a few tomatoes, that's not a problem. But if you're in production where efficiency is money, you can't do it like this. But anyway, now here's another plant. Now this one didn't break, and as you can see, even so, see, it got too tall, and so there's the vine that bent over. And I guess I should have wrapped that around, but I got too lazy. I had to do some other things, so I just haven't been paying much attention in here. But they just keep going, and then they get too tall and too heavy, they flop over. But you can see they have no intention of dying, and they're still, you know, providing fruit. There's some really nice ones. But we've gotten so much fruit off of these that we're sick of it now because we make salsa with it, and my wife likes to slice them up for salads and things like that. But we just have so many of these that we don't need them. And here's another one here. Look at this. This one, see, this one's laying on the ground. That probably came from somewhere and it flopped over. Maybe it's this one. I don't know. I don't want to track it right now. But see right there? But anyway, if you're going to let your tomatoes go train up there, don't use this stuff. This stuff, I bought it in a garden center, and it's supposed to be for trellising plants, but as you can see, it rotted off and broke. And what I use is nylon. This is the same kind of nylon stuff you buy in the construction aisle for, you know, making lines and levels and things like that. And that holds up quite well. So there's these, yeah, this is still holding up here, and it's holding this one up, but I expect it to break soon. And there's a, anyway, now, these are grown in the dirt, and as you can see, you know, they're doing really well. They really take to this. Now, turn around, and this is what I was talking about, the cuttings that I put in. After these were planted, I took a few of the cuttings off of here, and I planted them in there. And the way I did it, these are too overgrown to show you, but let me go over here and show you. The way I did it was like this, and here's another one that's actually a cutting. And what I did was, you know, I just it broke off here or something, and I just stick the plant in the water. Now this one's actually stuck in a pot, but anyway, so that's all I did. You can stick the plant in the water, the end of the plant, and they grow well doing that. So there's a few more. Here's another one that I did it to, and another. Yeah, it's the same plant, but as you can see, they're growing fine and producing tomatoes. And here's the other side of this. You can see there's a long vine here laying on the ground. Like you wonder, where did that come from? It came from inside there somewhere. So this is what happens when you grow determinate tomatoes. They just keep growing and growing and growing. But they also, like I showed you in the other one, they also give you offshoots. And if you want, you know, you can just cut them off at the top all the time, and they will start to sort of bush out, and they'll still produce a lot of tomatoes. It's just you can't do commercial harvesting that way because it's too inefficient. Now, let's go over here and I'll show you. Now these were just cuttings that I stuck in the water, and as you can see, here's one that hasn't got anything in it. And as you can see, this is just water. These are aquaponics again. But there's no there's no pot here that they're planted in, like I showed you upstairs. And look how well these have taken to this. You can see they're growing up. Some of these are, I think these are all indeterminate, I can't remember. But as you can see, they've grown up really high, and I've been supporting them with the strings. And they just keep going up and up. And the ones that aren't supported properly, they just flop over, and here they are, basically dragging on the ground. Now, what's important about this is, if I can get you a good shot here, is, there's the plants in there. I don't know if you can see in there, but you can see that little raft way back in there. Looks just kind of like this one does. But these tomato plants are just stuck in a hole like that. And there's no pot, no anything. And that's how they grew. And just plain old hydroponics, or aquaponics in here, you can see how well tomatoes like that. They really grow well in an aquaponics or a hydroponics environment. And that's really what I wanted to show you here. So either way works really well. And what I like about this is it's off the ground quite a ways. So when I come in here and harvest these, my wife really likes the cherry tomatoes, so I just harvested a whole bunch. But when you come in here to harvest these are right at shoulder level, so they're easy to pick. So that's kind of how the tomatoes are. Now let me show you over here the aquaponics. You've probably seen this before if you watch my videos. But this is the fish pond, and all I do in here is feed the fish. And you might see they just got all spooked because I came walking up here and they're all hiding in the bottom. But there's some very big fish in here, and all it does is it circulates through the system and it comes back out here. There's a pump here just under those plants right there, and if we sit here long enough, we might see some fish. Point of all this today is that tomatoes will grow in the ground and do quite well, or they'll grow in the aquaponics or the hydroponic environment and do quite well there too. There are some plants that get a little picky and they're a little difficult to deal with when you're talking about aquaponics or hydroponics, or maybe just growing them in general. But tomatoes seem to like it either way. And in fact, here's one of the Brandywine tomatoes. I dare bring this in the house. My wife's tired of tomatoes. So anyway, but look at that. You don't find these in the store like that. These taste a little different than in the store. Now you get what they call cat facing, but I think people who really know tomatoes, that is a plus, because that's an heirloom and it's a good one and it's not been production grown, and they taste a lot better when you do that.